Let's go ahead and bring in the author of 2 best-selling books and co-host of The War Room that airs right here on America's Voice News, Raheem Kassam. Welcome, Raheem. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're coming into our second day for the House managers to argue their case against President Donald Trump. We witnessed Adam Schiff in that nearly 3-hour speech he gave. Then Nadler, some are criticizing his over-the-top rhetoric. What is your reaction to what we've seen so far?
Well, it's clear that between Schiff and Nadler, they're now playing good cop, bad cop. It remains to be seen as to whether or not that was an intentional strategy or that's something that's just come about naturally here. But I think it works in Adam Schiff's favor. It makes him look very reasonable up there, very presentable, like he's being, sort of the voice of moderation as far as the Democrat side and the Democrat side of the argument is concerned. And this plays back into what we've been saying for some days now on War Room Impeachment, which is this is a show for the cameras. This isn't about trying to convince anybody in the Senate chamber. People have made up their minds by and large. There may be 1 or 2 votes here and there, but you can't exactly claim that the presentations, as far as we've seen them so far, are playing to those 1 or 2 votes. No, this is the weaponization of the impeachment process for use in the 2020 election cycle. What the Democrats are seeking to do here is extract 30, 60-second clips so that their candidates can take to the campaign trails and air these comments from them, air these Schiff clips that show them taking the fight to the president in the Senate chamber. It is an abuse of power, quite frankly, that we're seeing taking place on national television all day long in front of our eyes. But what's also true of what Nadler and Lofgren and Hakeem Jeffries and Schiff and all the others that have been up there today is that actually the more time they spend up there, the more weary the American public gets of their voices and their arguments, the more repetitious they become, the more dull it is, the more boring it is, and it leaves the Trump defense team with a gaping open goal, really, to come back, slam these guys, show where their hypocrisies, their lies, their misrepresentations, and the holes in their case are, and mop this thing up as quickly as possible.
Well, Raheem, you mentioned the Trump defense legal team. I want to get to that. I have 2 more questions to ask you. Something I found interesting is at the heart of this is that Ukrainian aid. House managers mentioned Joe and Hunter Biden over these 2 days numerous times, which is interesting because if they don't want them to testify, they said they don't want them to testify, and say that the Ukrainian investigation into Burisma corruption would impact those 2020 elections. I mean, if the Bidens did nothing wrong, then how would the investigation give the president an unfair advantage in the 2020 election?
You've been listening to War Room Impeachment. That is the point, isn't it? I mean, they say that these investigations that, by the way, were already going on in Ukraine. This isn't something that the president asked for afresh. There was investigations going on into Burisma represented by this PR company in the United States, which is run by former Obama and Clinton staffers, and its managing director, in fact, was a former special advisor for Joe Biden. We know of the emails that were sent from that PR company seeking representations with the U.S. government in 2016 to deal with Burisma's poor reputation inside the United States, and they used Hunter Biden's name in those emails to try and get meetings. That is an abuse of power. That should have been an impeachable offense at the time. It should be a retroactively impeachable offense now, quite frankly. But the reason that they keep bringing up Hunter and Joe Biden, and the reason I think they're probably making a rather big mistake, is they're using today to try and clear Hunter and Joe Biden's names. What they're actually doing is planting the seeds of doubt by repeating the claims that have been made against them for so long.
Okay, and very quickly here, the White House defense team most likely will start Saturday. You're an extremely sharp man. If you were on that team, what would be your plan of attack, your strategy to defeat the Dems?
I would take every single second at my disposal. I wouldn't finish early, as Jay Sekulow has intimated that he might do, and I would make sure that we have as much multimedia evidence, slideshows, videos, audios, picking apart the claims made by people like Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, picking apart the backgrounds of George Kent, picking apart Fiona Hill, Pamela Karlan, all of these people who the House marched through the House committees, the Judiciary Committee, the Intelligence Committee, picking apart their claims one by one and repeating them over and over again, so that when the public is allowed to hear the arguments in the roundups that the media present them with, that there is plenty of material the Trump defense team can point to and say, we put it all up. Just because the media doesn't show it to you, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. My fear is they try and wrap this thing up very, very quickly indeed, and it doesn't give them the amount of the sheer amount of clips and multimedia necessary to break the Democrats' case in the court of public opinion.
Okay, great points there. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Raheem. It was a pleasure to have you on the show.